And we're starting in about 40 seconds. We have audio and visual ready, and we're starting in about 15 seconds. So,
good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the January Cypresswood Community Association meeting to order. Mr. Vice President, will you please call the roll?
Patio.
Here. Present.
Cypress Pond.
Here.
Eagle Pond. Enclave.
Here.
Fairway Patio.
Here.
Garden Patio. Golf Villas. Greenfield Village. Meadows.
Here.
Oak Grove.
Here.
Palmacia.
Here.
Plantations.
Here.
Sandhill Lane. And Villas on the Green.
Just by the whisper, we have 8, and that is quorum. Next slide, please, Suzanne. I need a motion and an approval for tonight's meeting agenda, please. Mr. McCauley has made such motion. Mr. Murphy has seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next slide, please. I also need an approval for the November 15 meeting minutes that we had way back in November of 2021. Mr. Brett has made such a motion. Is there a second? Dr. Palmer? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resident comments. Do we have any resident comments? Okay. Great. We'll move on to the next slide, please. Oh, fancy clock. Landscape Committee, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Bob. We just have, as I mentioned on Friday when I sent Bob the email, we're asking for 5 days of tree trimming, and it will occur in February. What we're looking at is that we have this Brazilian pepper tree invasion that's along the canal, and it's also been found over by the tennis courts. And if we don't remediate this, it's been here a couple of years, it's just gonna continue to get worse, and it's gonna take everything over. So, we have proposed with Medlock, is he's got 2.5 to plus, almost 3 days to get the Brazilian pepper trees out of there. Then he's going to go with the stump grinders, and he's going to take all of the root systems out that he can, and it's on the level ground on the north side of the canal, behind Village on the Green, and then over on the embankment where he cannot get his stump grinder. He has a chemical that will kill that. And so he's set up to do that in February, and then we're going to do 2.5 to 3 more days of palm trees along the west side of the boulevard. We do these every year, and this is the time to do it. And so what I've asked for Bob to do is to put a motion on the floor for 5 days of trimming for a total of $7,000 out of the tree budget.
Do we have anybody who wants to make that motion?
I'd like to have a discussion on
If there's no motion, no second, Mr. Passon, then there's no need to have a discussion, so let's have, Mr. McCall, do we have a second? Dr. Palmer, okay, Mr. Passon, would you like to come up and address the board about this issue?
I'm the vice president of the Meadows. Our new president is ill tonight and not able to attend in his absence. And one of the things I'd like to ask that he asked me is, where are these locations where we're going to do this work? We have 1.5 miles that goes through, 1.5 miles on the boulevard. We have probably about 1.5 miles of canal running west to east through our Cypresswood community. He said that he didn't feel that he would be able to track down, like walking along the canal for 1.5 miles, or for that matter, along the boulevard for 1.5 miles, what palm trees we were going to have an expenditure of about $10,000 in round numbers, and we'd like to know where. He would have liked to have investigated to see how he felt about the work that was being suggested for $10,000, and we'd like to know where that work is going to be done, other than to say it's on 1.5 mile long boulevard. I guess you could find that, and it's about 1.5 mile long canal, and I guess you walk along there, you might discover where those roots are growing. So he'd like to know, if you could, give an identification of where work is going to be done when we're going to be asked to vote on something that is a substantial amount of money, I think, for the size of the budget of the amount that's being proposed today.
You answered well. I apologize if the mayor's gone. I did not comprehend what he said.
Can I answer that for you? The location of the 2 places where the work is going to be done.
2 locations. It's on the north side of the canal, right behind Village on the Green, for the pepper trees.
Right.
And then there is a pepper tree around the side of the tennis courts, and we're going to take that out. And that's for 2.5 days worth of work right there. And then there's stump removal, and then there's treating the chemical, and there's getting rid of all the debris right there.
Where are the palm trees that are going to be worked on the boulevard?
I hate to ask you to do this, but I cannot understand you.
Let me ask you this. Where are the palm trees that are going to be worked on that are along the 1.5 mile length of the boulevard?
Not a mile and a half. We don't have a mile and a half. It's on the west side of the boulevard.
Wait a minute. I measured it. We do have 1.5 miles of boulevard.
Oh, I'm not questioning that.
I thought you just said we don't have 1.5 miles. I'm sorry.
No, we don't have 1.5 miles of palms along the boulevard.
I know that.
Okay, so that's what only thing we're doing is just the palms along the boulevard and in one of the triangle areas by the well and the irrigation, we're trimming those palms also.
And his question was, my president's question was, where are those palms along the boulevard? We know they're along the boulevard, but being it's 1.5 miles long, he doesn't know where to start looking for the palms you're gonna have work done on. He's not saying he doesn't want it
You help me out
done.
here, Rick, because you know, Rick is in charge of the trees that's involved along here, so he can answer that for you, but it's from, it's right after the first triangle area, all the way up to St. Andrews.
Between Glen Eagles and Clubhouse Road, or actually St. Andrews,
Yes,
we have cluster palms on the east side,
correct, west side.
west side, excuse me. We trim them annually, because if you let them get out of control, it's gonna take 2 or 3 times as long to trim them back. They get obnoxiously large, dead limbs blowing in people's yards. We also have a couple of palms that are located where the well is. They're in that triangle area that we did not get trimmed last time we were trimming in that area because we had so much time allotted and we ran out of time.
And you're talking the triangle area that's in between, in garden patio.
Right,
Yeah.
backs up to the garden
Yeah.
patio.
Exactly.
While you're up here along the canal, where are the
Okay.
trees?
The Master Association has assumed ownership of the canal from Cypresswood Boulevard going west to, probably about to the golf course limits. And we maintain that canal embankment. Now, east of Cypresswood Boulevard, that's for the most part maintained by the Water Management District. They've agreed to take care of that.
So we've done this every year, John, since we've been doing it for about the past 9 years. We do this every year as part of what we do to maintain the look of the boulevard and trying to keep it as nice as possible. But we've done this every year. This is something that's been ongoing. This is not new. It's something we've done for years here. So what's your concern here?
Well, the concern was to know the location because the president, being, I think, a little astute, maybe overbearing on his interest in being astute, would like to know when you're going to spend money and you want him to vote on it to spend the money, what you're spending it on, where. You know, not to say the boulevard.
I understand. Well,
Yeah, well,
there's
that's the
only one
concern.
area where those cluster palms are located. If you drive by in there, you go by it, as you start there from.
I know where the area is.
Okay, well then those are the palms, and you know where they are.
I know where they are, but he did not know what palms you were talking about.
Who was it that didn't know?
The president of the Meadows, his name is Joe Bachman.
Oh, okay, I didn't know who we were talking about. There you go, okay.
And while you're both up here, another question came up about the removal of some dying shrubs that were in the front of our sign that someone apparently complained about, that it didn't give them the kind of visibility that they wanted looking west when they were leaving
And the
our
sign?
community.
Well, out front.
No, there's not, stand there, there's clear view all the way down the road there. That's something that we did when we did the work on the sign. That was one of the things we maintained. Plus, we just did at the stop sign where the golf cart crossing is, right before the field house, excuse me, the traffic control house. We've lowered those to be sure that there's lines of sight. And then you go back to the four-way stop for Enclave. We've lowered those down to the.
His concern was over the $800 we spent to remove a few shrubs from the front of our sign
At the entrance exit gate.
there was work done, and you asked for $800
Yeah.
to remove some shrubs.
No, we didn't. We removed some shrubs, we removed some trees, we changed the irrigation system. All of that was for safety purposes for line of sight.
And after that was done, there was an additional $800 asked for, just to remove the shrubs in front of the sign, because people said that when they came to the white line, they couldn't see to the left or to the west.
Okay.
Okay, now there's a fence going all the way down the highway, 520 feet long, a metal fence that you can't see through, that blocks your view of oncoming traffic from the west toward our entrance gate. So his question was, why did we spend $800 to remove some shrubs when you can't see as much now, unless you pull 4 to 6 feet, which almost everybody does. When you're leaving Cypresswood, they pull 4 to 6 feet beyond the white line so that they can see. Otherwise, you can't, because the fence that the county put up, or the state, whoever did the fencing, blocks your view.
I can't change that, that's part of,
That's right, changing the shrubs didn't change anything, because now you can see from our gate, you can see to the beginning of the fence,
well,
another 50 feet.
I beg to differ with you, because what we've done is when we stopped at the white line, I noticed that there was it was being blocked at the view going west, and when we took it down, changed the irrigation system, and put the lower flames in there, you can now see safely to the area to the west when you pull up to the white stop line. That's what it was done for, and that's where the safety portion is handled.
Hey,
Why we did that.
Hey, Bob?
Yes, Mark?
Yeah, well, the white line can't be moved any further north because of the crosswalk there.
Right.
So we can't move it.
That's
But
the part of the
I'm not sure
FDOT.
what the issue is, because you can't make a left-hand turn unless the light is green.
Correct.
So I don't know what the visibility issue is.
Visibility,
You
is you
gotta
have
wait
to
for
go
the light
beyond
to
the
be
white
green,
line
then
to
make a
see.
left-hand turn.
See
You
west
can't
of
turn left
542,
on
you
right.
have to go beyond the white line, and the fact that that white line is 37 feet from crossing traffic on the highway, and most of the areas around here, the white lines are between 21 and 18 feet.
Yeah, but did you notice how they constructed the walkway with the handicap ramp? It's just a little bit in front of that white line, and you can't have the white line interfere with the crosswalk. So that's why that white line is where it's at. But as far as turning left, you gotta wait for a green light to turn left.
Right.
That's right.
Any other questions?
Maybe you can relay this for me, Bob. So going back to the tree work that was done, was this?
Hasn't been done.
Well, that's going to be done?
Yes, sir.
Potentially. Is the cost the same this year as it was last year?
Yes.
The question was, is the cost the same this year as last year? And Mr. McCullough said, yes, it is.
Okay.
Same rate's still the same.
Okay.
I do know that Medlock has gone up in his prices per day, because we have to use him regularly, but you can negotiate him for a job, and if we have negotiated for the 5 days, then we have the same price. But that doesn't mean Medlock is the same for every job this year.
Sure.
He has gone up.
And you did say this was something that was a planned expense?
It's a regular planned expense, right? We do it annually.
And we do it annually. None of the other tree companies will give you a full 4-man crew and all the equipment for a 10-hour day. They charge by the tree, and they have to come in and they have to
Yeah.
quote it by the tree. What Medlock has done with this is being able to give us a full 10-hour day, 4-person crew or more with the equipment for $1,400 a day. And that's just probably one of the best programs that we've had in our efforts to keep the trees clean and to keep the canopy in position. So none of the other, you have another tree company look at it, they want to know what tree is it, what do you want to have done, how many trees do you have, that type of thing. So it allows us to take advantage of him being here. If he stops early because he's got the trees done, we can have him do a whole nother half a day worth of work, or we can cut him off right there, and then he only bills for a half a day.
FYI to other presidents, Enclave has a lot of vegetation and trees. Not all of you have that. When we hear about what Fred has arranged with Medlock, we try and piggyback, then we're not paying the setup charge for moving the equipment in. So if you have any work you need in your area, always try and have it done at the same time that the CCA has Medlock out here. You will save money.
FYI for other presidents, we have a procedure that we get three bids when we do a job like this. I don't think there's more than one for this job.
We're in contract with them.
Yes, sir.
Fred, now, this was budgeted, right? This is not
Yes.
over?
Yes.
or- Okay, there's
We
going to
budget
be
for it
any
every
problem.
year.
Why even talk about
Yeah,
Huh?
we budget
It's in the
15 days
budget,
worth of
why
work.
talk about it?
It's in the budget. We
Are
didn't
you,
do
um,
with it.
I agree.
Are you calling the question?
No, call the question.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes, thank you. Anything else from
That's
landscape?
it, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next slide, please, Savannah. Traffic control, Mr. Reese, and your double duties.
No report.
Oh, where are we going? Did I get that out of order? Rebecca, Road and Drainage Committee, Mr. Shira. Senior, sorry.
Senior.
Mr. Bill Shira as opposed to Mr. Scott Shira. Road drainage, number one, we only have 2 open items right now that are fresh from this week. Small item in Palmacia, a new item back in Plantation to work on. We have no other drainage items that are pressing news right now. If any presidents have anything or any residents have anything, please bring it to either Rick McCullough, Mark Klutenauer, or myself. Residents, feed it please through your presidents. That's how it comes to us. The only other thing I'll bring to you at this time, excuse me, let me get rid of all this junk. No, I can recite this. Tomorrow morning, FDOT will have the eastbound exit from Cypresswood changed from where it is now. They will have us completely shifted over to the southmost lanes. They will have the left turn lanes onto Highway 27 adjusted and changed, and there's going to be traffic control in place. This is all part of the reconstruction. Just be careful when you're leaving. That is supposed to happen overnight tonight. I did not leave the property today, so I can't tell you what happened beyond that, but they continue to move forward. I can tell you that the work on 542 is proceeding as well as could be expected. While they have an anticipated completion date of summer of 23, you can bet it's going to be quicker than that. There was also a point in time someone in the community brought to my attention concerns about the lighting when Lake Ned Road comes into Dundee Road coming from Winter Haven. I think you'll notice this week all the lighting that's being put in place there. I mean, this is going to be a real nice travel way, and it's really going to do a great job of showcasing our community. If anyone have any questions, I'll remain late here, and please bring them to me, and that's all I have. Presidents, do you have any questions?
Just one for me.
Yeah.
That blinking light turns into a static.
Yes, yes. Lake Ned Road will become a full stop with A-cell and D-cell lanes and turn lanes and, you know, just what you'd expect it to be. You can also anticipate that along the way, when Country Club Road comes down and intersects, that's going to end up being one too.
Yeah.
You know, we keep getting the rumors we're going to get a Publix there. You know, it's you can tell what's happening. There's more people coming, better roadways are coming. But again, on behalf of our community, the way we look from that roadway, I think you all need to be pretty doggone proud of how we look.
Thank you, Bill. The next one up is our new treasurer, Scott Shira, the Treasurer Advisory Committee.
I like to be called new.
Okay, the December 31st financial report is being produced now by the CAM, and it goes to the accountant, and then we get it. So expect a year-end report, summary report, like we've done each quarter, along with the financials. to be sent to the presidents either sometime after mid-February. If it drags too much, we'll just present it, we'll send it and then have it to go over for the March meeting. So in lieu of that, what I did do was thought it'd be appropriate to look at our 2022 budget approved by last year's board, thank you board, and with our 21 budget. So that's what's up on the screen, and for the presidents that came in the room, we didn't have time to get this out via email, so you were handed a printed copy. It's all the information you have. There's just a few highlights I would like to point out. You see in our assessments that we got a gain for the year of $122,000 at the top. And then for that, it's broken into the two budgets. We've got operational, and in the operational budget, I've listed the variance in the far right-hand column. Otherwise, it's the same budget year over year. What you will see is under reserves, general reserves will gain about $121,000. That is money that goes into our reserve fund and is not spent without this board's approval or future board's approval. So we have that as a rainy day fund, if you will. I hope we have sunny days. So other than that, down under there, we have the amenities budget. And in the amenities budget, 2021 for me was a year where we were able to really start to begin to bifurcate the amenities budget and get an understanding where we need to be budgeting monies within amenities. We know loan servicing stays stable, okay. But under that, we have golf course agronomics, and then equipment maintenance and repair. Below that, pool, and then the bottom part is the general operational. I've listed the variance within only 2021 on the far right-hand column, so we could understand where did we go over, where did we come in under, and how did we do for the year. A little bit over, about 2.8% versus the total budget. And the one reason I wanted to look at this is we've carried forward for 2022 a budget that was basically put together in October of 2020. We've had a lot of inflation since then. I had someone tell me last week in my travels that 2022 was going to be the year of the raise. If you're an employee on a wage and you want to get more money, this is the year to ask for it. Because employers are faced with labor shortages and things of that nature. So that may spill over. We rely on a lot of service industry in our community. That may spill over to some of the rates that we hope to stay stable, but they could go up a little bit. So it's going to be a year to watch how our spending goes for just the staple things. I noticed just, down on the bottom, the utilities line went over by about 4%, $4,000. And it made me think, I don't know if my home budget's gone up like that on my electric, but we know that inflation is real for the year. COLA was good for people on Social Security, if you will. And I think it's just something that we're going to want to keep an eye on to make sure we stay within the guidelines of our budget. Does anyone have any questions? Great. If you do and it's later, email Bob, email me. If you need to get in touch with me, please reach out. Happy to discuss anything with regard to community finance. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Joe. Next up is the Amenities Committee. Martha. Next slide, please.
Okay, so for tonight, we have repair and maintenance, $9,099.04, agronomics, $16,943.72, utilities, $16,843.34, insurance, $5890.48, pool service and supplies, $2972.51. Amenity building improvements, $1575.0, and property tax, $7,673.13. So the total operational request for this meeting is $60,989.22. Simply that total, and this was already in the budget. Nothing new.
What's the amenity building improvement? What is that?
That was a repair to the, we had to repipe the pool building for water, there was a leak there, and the Cart Bar and restaurants.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
He says, how do
How do we
we
get
act?
access to the statements for the numbers that are on the board, any of the numbers that are being presented? How do we?
The community finance on website.
They should be all on the community website. They also are part of this is simply part of the previous budget, and your president should have that, but that also is on the community webpage.
Thank you.
I got a question. You know, the community has spent $2 million to improve the amenities. Yet, you know, and the golf course supposedly makes money, and this facility, do we ever get a profit and loss statement from the golf course as well as the clubhouse?
The amenities committee receives that information at each one of their meetings.
And does it go to the president?
It can, it's just whatever the amenities committee and what the board directs the amenities committee to do.
I mean, we're talking about transparency here, and I get a lot of comments.
Right, and the traffic control, the treasurer's advisory committee is working, has been working towards that document,
Okay.
right, Mr. Shirer?
Yeah, and you have provided an overview of that. It's rolled up. It's not, detailed, but you've provided that.
Right, and it will be done it's typically done at that March meeting, once the financials are settled and the tax returns are done and all that.
Yeah, with the quarterly report.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right,
The amenities committee, on a monthly basis, and it's part of our responsibility, gets the monthly report that covers everything. And it's many pages. And I mean, I don't think you'd want necessarily to copy that to everybody.
No, I just like,
Right.
yeah, and of course,
See how we're doing.
any president is welcome to attend any of those meetings,
Okay.
if you want.
Yes, they have
They're
always
they're
been open.
Yeah, they have.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the operational reserve request from the amenities committee. Mr. Cramp has made such a request, seconded by Mr. Murphy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next slide, please. This is, this is kind of a sum up of what Scott said and what Martha asked for. It shows the 2020 amenities assessment surplus, the amenities assessment, and the board approved expenses through December 31st, including that. So that's where that just kind of sums up the whole thing, just kind of rolls it up into one. Any questions there? You're going to get this, Tom. I'll email it to you so you can watch it tomorrow morning or read it. Next one, please. Are there any questions?
Keep moving mouse. There we go.
This is the year-to-date of the golf course rounds. It's one of the things that was asked us. As you can see, in 2021, we did 39,000 rounds. In 2020, we did 24. 2021 was the best rounds we've done since about 13, I think. So that shows a significant increase. 20 was the year that we were 5 months down, so kind of ignore that. So these are more typical numbers. So we're surging, getting a lot of good reviews. Next slide, please. This is the golf course condition report that I've done lately. We have 15 greens that are in good shape. We got 3 that are lagging behind but are continuing to progress. Continue to fertilize weekly, have herbicides on an as-needed basis. Greens are top dressed every 3 to 5 weeks, and greens will be vented once a month throughout the winter. We've already done that twice. That kind of helps those 3 progress. The greens are treated with an nematicide every 2 weeks. That's for nematode, which is a microscopic little frog creature. That's a little pain in the butt. Tees, all 90 tee stations have been seeded for a second time. All stations are fertilized and herbicides every 3 to 5 weeks. Green surrounds and approaches. Both areas have been overseeded. Agronomic practices have begun and will continue throughout the winter. Next slide, please. Fairways, fertilizer and herbicides will be complete on an as-needed basis. Fertilizer more than herbicide. We have to be careful in the wintertime that we don't herbicide it to death. A pre-emergent herbicide was applied in December, which will help us when we get into the growing season and suppresses the weed base during the coldest time of the year. Let's hope for no frost tomorrow morning. The roughs are all caught up, and we expect to be able to maintain them to golf course standards throughout the winter. Bunkers are our biggest challenge at the moment. Edging and spraying has begun and will continue throughout the winter. That has more to do with our 3 members of staff for the last 3 weeks, but we are back up to 8, so that's good. Next slide, please. And as you know, we maintain 140 acres inside of the Cypresswood community. Of that, 80 acres is golf course playable areas. We still have no golf course mechanic and 1 applicant to call. Let's keep our fingers crossed. We currently have a golf course maintenance staff of 8, including the superintendent. Any questions on that?
Question again.
Yes, Mr. Cramp.
When does Roy water? Does he water during the night or?
Most watering is done at night unless we're putting down, fertilizers or herbicides. We did have a problem yesterday during our wonderful rain that a head stuck and we had to take some evasive action to get it to turn off. But it happens. You get sand on the lines and something sticks. Mr. John, do you have a question?
Yeah, have you had time or gotten the numbers together to tell us whether the golf course made money or lost money?
We just answered that. We'll make that report in March when we get our tax returns and all the final. It's just too early in the year to do that now. Yes, sir.
To mirror his question, in your best guess, on a week-to-week basis, is the golf course turning a profit, yes or no? Simple question.
The golf course?
Yes, the golf course.
Right now, yes.
Week to week, is it turning a profit?
Yes, right now, the golf course. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Next slide, please. New business. Is there any new business to be brought before the board? Ms. Jason, yes, sir.
Yep, had some questions about the streetlight inquiry for Oak Grove.
Okay.
Maybe Bill could come up again?
Bill, do you want to handle the street? Or Mark, do you want to? I don't know who's.
I think Bill had addressed it.
Jason.
Yep. So, I guess to give everyone a little background, Oak Grove had a meeting back in November. Residents raised their concerns about
back in November, residents of Oak Grove raised their concerns about inadequate lighting in between the 2 streets that make up Oak Grove. So I had sent an email off to Bob back in the beginning of the month asking about whose responsibility that would be, because the location of the light would actually be located on Cypresswood Boulevard. And so according to Bill, your response here essentially is the financial responsibility for all common roads ends at the point that service to more than 1 HOA ceases. So I'm just wondering, is that something that's is that located in any of the governing documents, like the Articles of Incorporation, or?
No, in probably the mid-90s, excuse me. No, probably in the mid-90s, the Road and Drainage Committee did a review of all common roads in Cypresswood. The purpose of that was to identify how we would accumulate funds for the resurfacing and the maintenance of those roadways. In doing that, what we determined was all roads that serviced more than one HOA would be considered common roads. An example of that would be, how about Country Club Boulevard coming over here? Country Club Boulevard is a common road until it reaches the point near the cart barn where only one association is serviced. That association is Villas in the Green. At that point, that road is the responsibility of Villas on the Green. So with regard to Oak Grove, that point could be determined and was determined back when that was done to be at the point where Oak Grove 1 and Oak Grove 2 existed. That was the property line northmost from the last property across there. When Oak Grove 2 was dissolved and taken out of the community, the association felt that it was unfair to tag Oak Grove with the responsibility of that road all the way back to Cypress Pond, which is about where that speed hump is, where Dave's group is. So we maintained that part of the road here. Now, so what happens is the master association, the community association, is responsible for maintenance and road surfacing and all the things that go with that, all the way back to the point where your association begins. And that would be where the first home is, kind of where your sign is that identifies your HOA. The street light you're talking about exists back within that part of the community, and therefore no other homeowners association in Cypresswood receives any benefit from that, and that would be the basis. Rick McCullough, Mark Klutnauer, and I all discussed this, and were consistent in arriving at that decision.
Okay, well, the Polk County property assessor site actually shows.
Hold on.
So if you look at this sheet right here, Bill, that is the parcel, that is the part of the street that I'm talking about, and you can see that it's owned by the community association, correct?
That's correct.
Right, so I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I thought you said that this part of the road was just Oak Grove's responsibility.
I did not say who owned it. I said who it belonged to. And that determination was made by the community association. The community association does not take ownership responsibility, even though it's recorded on the county books that way. In all other situations, the homeowners association takes responsibility for those roads at that point where the road stops servicing more than one community association. If in fact we wish to change this, that would be a board function. It's up to all the members of this board to review that and change it, and then we'll change it and we'll do that.
Okay, so I just want to understand though, is this section of the road, is that going to be Oak Grove's responsibility for repaving?
Yes. Yeah, I can tell where we are. This is Oak Hill, and yeah, from right there back, that is yours.
So even though that this is owned by the Cypresswood Community Association?
Yes.
That's going to be Oak Grove's responsibility to repay?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my next question then is, can you read what Article 2, Section 2 says in the Articles of Incorporation?
Article 2, Section 2 says, to provide for maintenance and preservation of the entrance to Cypresswood and the roads and common areas throughout Cypresswood which are not owned and operated by either an HOA, a condominium, or the Golf and Country Club.
Okay, so you just established that this part of the road is not owned by Oak Grove.
I did not. What I said was, based on how the community identified how we would do maintenance, that was based upon who used the road.
And what about all the easements that have been granted for people like Buckman, John Wood, City of Winter Haven?
Those are outside the control of the community association. I'm on the edge of my ability to address that. I might look to Chris, but...
Bill?
What?
What did he say?
Oh, here.
Restate, please.
So I guess I'm just wondering, in addition, I mean, the comment was made about this is only servicing one HOA, but what about all the other easements that have been granted to this road over the years, like the City of Winter Haven? You know, John Wood has people that come and go through this particular area of the road. Buckman, I mean, there's plenty of traffic that isn't specific to Oak Grove that travels through this section of road.
I see you go through this section every morning.
Those, well, I think, I wish John was here to address this. Here's what I think that applies to. The first thing we have to do is step back and look at the PUD of Cypresswood. The grants to Buckman, the property beyond that, and the property that runs off to the southwest. Those are granted because of the county road that was abandoned to help us create Cypresswood. I think,
Yes.
excuse me.
That affected.
Yeah, you know that because how it affects you. Excuse me. For the benefit of anyone else watching this, and you jump in, because you all know about this. When Cypresswood was created, there was a county road that ran right through the middle of it. In order to create this community and give us the benefit of having a gated community, we had to ask that road be closed and abandoned. In order to be granted that, we had to give the property owners that were beyond that the ability to access their property. Those property owners were, for lack of exact description, the Buckman Ranch Group, I think the Beacons in the back.
Yeah, yeah.
And
the Oak Grove property was owned by a gentleman, Bobby, not Lanier, somebody else, and he had access to that property. That property went up for sale and was not part of Cypresswood originally. And what happened was that somebody else purchased it, some other developer, Highland Homes, anyone else purchased that property, we would have had to grant them access to it. So John Wood Sr. at that time decided to go ahead and buy the property, so that did not happen. He then went ahead and developed it as the subdivision of Oak Grove, and then, even though it was not technically part of the original Cypresswood, was voted into Cypresswood. So that was done to protect the rest of Cypresswood. There was one segment of Buckman Road that lasted for years, that ran behind the Enclave. And only about 5 years ago, we were able to get that section closed. But the other folks that were adjacent to Cypresswood, there's about 4 of them, had to be granted access to their property through Cypresswood.
Bill, the Enclave specifically had to grant to the Buckman Ranch where they turn off and go in there. That's on our property. We had to grant them an easement, and that was done several years ago. That was just by our HOA. And the kind of situation you're talking about is also similar to that section in front of Plantations, between the 2 lakes. Remember when there was a discussion of who should pay for that paving?
That's correct. And so please appreciate that those actions that were taken to capture the property, Oak Grove, to protect the community of Cypresswood from a developer that did not have common interests with the developer of this community, Those were actions that were on behalf of this community. That was good for this community. God knows what we could have had back there for homes.
And voted in by a board.
And that, yeah, all of that was passed through the board and back to the board. So, Mark?
Yeah, as well as when we did the road assessment, the board voted on how the roads are to be maintained after we evaluated them all and came up with a program, and we felt the most equitable way to do that is to assign it based on usage, not ownership. So.
Can I ask you a question? I'm Mike Howell, and I live in Oak Grove. There's a couple of things here in my mind. I want to clarify something. Are you saying that on Cypresswood Boulevard, from the beginning of Oak Grove, that it is our responsibility to repave the boulevard itself?
Yes.
Or just Oak Hill Place and Oak Tree Lane?
No, the boulevard.
Boulevard itself.
If I don't have in any of my records that when we last did this in 2010, I believe, that we paved the boulevard. Did we pay for that? That's not in my record.
Have to go back.
We didn't
have to go back and look to see if we.
We didn't have the money to do it. We borrowed the money from John Wood because it came about sooner than expected due to all the heavy traffic in the construction on Grove.
As I recall, just the two streets were done.
That's right. So now you're telling me it's 10 years later and we're going to have to pave the boulevard from the beginning of Oak Grove to the end.
Correct.
So the road reserve that we've been building is going to have to be substantially increased to pave a road that's really not ours. It's the only throughway for the John Wood maintenance operation, barns and all of that. It's the only access for Bugman's Ranch. I get my direction wrong, but that property at the end of the dirt road, they can't access that 300 or 400 acres. And Ms. Chartrand can't access hers without coming through Oak Grove. It kind of defies logic to me why the residents of Oak Grove would then have to pave that access for the John Wood Ranch and the Buckman Ranch and Miss Chartrand. And the traffic out of that ranch is not light. It's every single day. It's not a complaint, but that's reality. Ms. Buckman's ranch manager and family, they've now moved into that part of the Buckman Ranch. We put up a mailbox, put a gate with a gate code, so there's traffic out of that several times a day, traffic out of the ranch several times a day, and Ms. Chartrand's property. It just seems to me, I would just really like to ask my president to put a motion on the table and correct the situation, because I don't think that us coming up here, we're, I think, 4 years away from repaving. We've increased our reserve from 3,000 5 years ago to 4,000 for several years, 5,000 last year, 8,000 this year. Appreciating Mark and your comments about the increased cost of paving, hoping that we'll have, when it comes time to repave, instead of the $57,000 that we thought we would need, having $65,000 or more available for that. That's going to seriously impact our assessment if we're going to have to pave that big portion of the boulevard. Another thing, as you notice, I've lived here 20 years now since Oak Grove started. I think I was the third house that was built. We have a lot of a different demographic in Cypresswood as the years go by. We're seeing younger people and middle-aged people as opposed to older retirees. I'm 81, I don't count that. But there's a lot more walking, a lot more bike riding at all hours of the day and night.
even some parts of the boulevard that the CCA maintains are not adequately lit. So you're not going to be able to correct the problem with people walking on the right side of the road, bicycling on the right side of the road, crossing in the dark. My wife and I come through Cypresswood Boulevard to Oak Grove every Sunday night and Wednesday night on the way home from church. And I can tell you there's been several really close calls between myself, and I'm an extremely careful driver, and I keep that speed limit down. But given the traffic from the community at large, walking and biking in our area, and the two ranches and the Chartrand property, I think it would be appropriate for the board to consider a motion to in fact install that light, maintain and pave that part of the boulevard. Thank you.
So, speak to the equity of the other 15 locations that are affected like that and why it's, or do you want to do a study?
Mark?
Is there a motion? So,
Yeah, first off,
you're the president. I don't call for more.
Is there, do you want to make such a motion?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree that this section of Oak Grove should not be Oak Grove's responsibility for paving.
Okay.
It's very clear here who the owner is for that.
And again, I would just like to point out that there are other implications involved with doing that, that there are 13 other associations that have similar situations where that would shift a lot of the road responsibility onto the community association. Am I right, Mark?
Yeah, if you go on Palmacia, if you turn off Cypresswood Boulevard from Palmacia Road, from Cypresswood Boulevard all the way to the entrance to Palmacia, there are no traffic lights there. There are no lights along. None.
Well, that and the responsibility of paving.
Responsibility of the road.
So if you're going to do it for one, you have to do it for all, in my opinion, which would shift it's just going to shift the responsibility back into communities, which is it's going to have to be a recalculation of the road reserve amount. So if that has to be done, that would take a bit of time. But I personally don't think it could be done piecemeal, because that's what it was done originally. We went through that process.
Bob, excuse me, for what Mark just said, it sounds like some of these communities are paying to pave the boulevard similar to what's being asked now. Is that true? They're paying
Is a what?
No.
Paying to pave the boulevard?
No.
No community is paying to pave the boulevard.
The boulevard ends
Other
at...
than that section down there, now we're saying that, it's part of Oak Grove responsibility, because they're the only ones that use it. Now, the access to the Buckman Ranch, as we went over already, and I don't know if Mike didn't quite comprehend, but that had to be agreed upon in order to create Cypresswood as a gated community.
Right, it's a legal easement, am I correct? It's a legal easement?
Pardon me?
It's a legal easement.
They absolutely, because they had to sign off on closing Buckman Road.
And there's no way, as I understand it, that we now could go back to any of those property owners and require them to help pay for paving. We cannot.
I don't think that's what the question is the Cypresswood Community Association Inc. can take responsibility for all of the joint or all those areas that are affected, or are we going to keep it the way it's been for?
What other areas of the boulevards would
Not the boulevard. Bill just pointed. It's right out here. There's a section right there that's Clubhouse Road, which is a community association road, and it ends at the parking lot. And the rest of that section of Clubhouse Road belongs to Villas on the Green. There's plenty of sections like that all over the place.
Yeah.
I got that too.
Same thing, yeah. There's many roads that are like that throughout Cypresswood. So it has to either, if it wants to be pursued, if the board wants to direct the road committee to come with a proposal to refocus that, that's the board's prerogative. That's how it started.
I think we needed a second. I think we have a motion, but not a second.
Can I say something before we go to that?
Sure.
If you wanna, let's just say that you wanna talk about the road and its access to a single subdivision. So let's just say we're not, but let's just say we all agree that we're fine with that. We're still being penalized by legal access to the benefit of the developer by granting legal access that was necessary in order for him to build Oak Grove. So we're still paying for that traffic for the ranch and for the John Wood Ranch, and that's penalized. I don't think.
Do you mean Oak Grove's penalized or the CCA
Oak
is
Grove.
penalized?
Oak Grove is penalized. If you're going to say that you come to the Oak Grove sign and from there to the end of the pavement, we got to pave it, and yet there's no other way for the John Wood Ranch or the Buckman Ranch people to access their facilities and their properties. That's, no other subdivision that's paying for any part of the street, the kind of type thing we're talking about. No other one has a situation in front of them that Oak Grove does.
We did.
We're not but you granted an easement.
We did.
And it's dirt. I just drove on it to see Miss Mann yesterday.
That concrete bridge
that
over
little
that
slab
ditch
there.
there.
Which some people are backing up to and observing somebody at night, by the way, on a vehicle on the boulevard. So what I'm saying is, I went and saw Miss Mann yesterday, because I wanted to really understand what was going on at that back ranch, because the traffic has increased. But if you had no other reason, gentlemen, to consider this, and ladies, we really should not be expensed with facilitating the John Wood Ranch and the Buckman Ranch. That's really not an obligation of ours, and it doesn't belong in any other association. Now you can call it for your second.
Kevin, you had your hand up for a while. Just a second, please. Mr. Seward had his hand up for a bit.
Kevin Seward, and I live in Oak Grove. I'm going to address this partially maybe to Chris. He can help us out here. Chris, is it not a difference between an easement and an easement with a maintenance agreement? And if there were a maintenance agreement with these other parties, would it not be their responsibility in part to help maintain that road? And do we know what we have back there?
Do you know that answer?
If this board would like for me to check out the easements again, I can. However, I can pretty much assure you that back in the day, when these folks agreed to close the road in exchange for making this a private road, I'm sure they made sure they didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's my recollection as well. But that's, all right, we have, yes, John?
You kind of made the statement that if this were asked for and granted, we'd have to make a whole bunch of other changes.
Well, if I was
The question is, how many other situations on the boulevard are similar to this? Name one other one. Similar to this.
On the boulevard?
Yes.
I don't believe there are any on the
Then
boulevard.
make the motion that it only covers boulevard situations. And then you don't have to worry about every community in Cypresswood asking for the CCA to pave their roads. Just make it.
That's up to whoever wants to make the motion. I mean, I'm not controlling the motion. What's the motion? Do you want to make it? What is your motion?
So I'd like to make a motion that the Cypresswood Community Association assume the responsibility and maintenance of the entire boulevard from front to end.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
But I think we should look into it. I mean, I don't think.
No, I believe the
A year
motion.
ago,
Because what you're describing is an easement by every tenant.
We're
That's the
voting.
legal term. Yeah, you're right, we're done talking, I guess, all right.
Yeah. What was your statement? I mean, the vote fails.
This time last year, I believe, this room was asking for several $100,000 for a drainage project that had absolutely zero impact on the Oak Grove neighborhood.
That's true.
And so now, this community association doesn't want to assume responsibility for a section of road that they own through. Unreal.
I am very
Unreal.
willing to look at
Disgraceful.
a study with a map, where we can look at a map of all the roads, and we draw on that map what is currently paid for by the CCA, what is paid for by HOAs, and then determine what parts we want to be paid for by the CCA. And I'm perfectly willing to do that. I don't want to vote for this motion for this one item unless I look at how it affects all the HOAs. Perfectly
And
willing
it
to
would
look
have
at a
to
study.
change in the 2023 budget, because it would have to change the road reserve calculus, correct, Road and Drainage Committee?
Yeah, I don't want to do this piecemeal again. It was done that way once.
So that could be a directive that the board gives the Road and Drainage Committee if they want to, that's something that could be done.
Well, I will move that the Road and Drainage Committee examine what is HOA and what is CCA roads, and on a map that we can all understand, be presented with that information. And then we can see how many spots, how many yards are affected.
And I accept.
The second amendment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Road and Drainage Committee, you have a project. Do you have a timeline soon, like in 6 months?
No, 6 months. No, that's been done before, and we'll bring that back. That's what we did in the 90s.
Since I made the motion, I will help you if you want.
It was a different situation then with Oak Grove, because that was 2 communities. So
Correct.
that's when everything changed.
Okay.
And we'll just bring all that back. We'll create a document we put up here and everybody can look at. That's easy. That's not hard.
Okay. Yes, sir?
The question, just procedural question. So we voted, made an motion, voted, not yours, but the other one, is that just?
It
table
failed.
that, or-
It failed. The motion failed by voice.
Okay.
In the determination of the chair. Anything else?
Who seconded Martha?
Dave did.
Second, Dave Crank
Yeah, I
did.
did. I
Yes.
made the second, Martha, the motion.
Any other new business to be brought before the board? Yes, John?
I have a couple things. First thing involves our head of security. I noticed there's some new people working the gate, and a couple of years ago, there was a situation where cars, vehicles were being passed by next to the gate, and clickers and stickers weren't allowed the priority in the right of way. I was told that was corrected, and it's in the minutes that it was corrected, that stickers and clickers have the priority. Well, already this year, I've almost been hit twice by some clowns they got working on at that gate that don't understand that that's the way that's supposed to work at that gate. I backed up to the gate the first time that it happened, approached the man that passed him through, and I explained to him the situation. The guy just stood there with a dumb look on his face, wouldn't even respond to me. So I think what you're going to need to do to correct this is to have specific paperwork for new employees hired to do that job that outlines exactly what they have to do and in what way, and then sign that document as a condition of their employment. Second thing, golf carts in this place. About a month ago, there was a 12-year-old operating a golf cart on Troon with a 9-year-old in the front seat with him. They were weaving all over the street, almost hit another resident's vehicle. The 9-year-old was almost thrown off of the golf cart. 2 residents called the sheriffs. 2 different sheriffs showed up. One of the residents actually found out where this golf cart was located, headquartered, if you will. None of the sheriffs even went to that homeowner to find out just what the problem was and why this was being allowed to happen. So you tell everybody not to call the gate and everything if they have an issue. Well, I got news for you. Don't do much good to call these sheriffs in this county these days either, for something like that. Saturday night, my wife and I were walking the dogs, and I heard something out of this side of my head, and I jumped back and pulled the dog back just in the nick of time to avoid being run over by a golf cart operated by some teenage girls, no headlights, no lights at all on this golf cart. This is like after 10 o'clock at night. They pulled up to a stop sign. Of course, there was no directionals. They ran the stop sign, laughing and giggling, going down the main roadway out there. We got up to the next street. They ran that stop sign, headed on down that street off on their merry way. The sheriffs were called once again. I don't even know the outcome of that. So I would like to see this board, I know Florida law states 14 years of age. Somebody can, this community needs to step up and change that. We need to have something in place that says no one under the age of legality, whereas they would have a learner's permit. I don't know how that works in Florida exactly.
15.
Okay, nobody under that age operates a golf cart in this place whatsoever. This is going to keep going. Somebody's going to get hurt, either somebody on the cart or somebody that they hit, or involvement with another motor vehicle running around with no lights. This has got to be gotten under control here. And to this lady, in December, in the Cypresswood highlights, there's a whole list of things that you have on here, what we should do, and I take it you're looking for input.
Those are things we can do, if we choose to.
Yeah, you may do. One of the things is eliminating tennis courts. Well, about 4 years ago, I headed up, well, it wasn't even a committee, it was myself and one other person that we were discussing it, to get the pool heated by way of solar heat exchangers. I got 2 estimates and submitted them to the CCA. It was determined that we didn't have the money at the time. So now I'm looking on here and we're looking at eliminating 2 tennis courts, and at that time all we needed was the 1 tennis court that was closest to the pool, so all those heat exchangers and the associated piping could be set up. And they said, oh no, we can't do that. We've got to have those tennis courts. Those are used by everybody all the time. Well, that might have been a good number of years ago, but you don't see people on these courts anymore. Hence your suggestion for maybe eliminating it. So, looking for funds to spend that benefit the most people in this community. Most of the year, you can't even go in that pool unless you're looking to get a case of hypothermia or something. I suggest we take some funds.
Would you like the amenities committee to get a new estimate to heat the pool?
Well, I did it before. I got 2 different estimates, so if you folks want to do that, get 2 or 3 estimates and let's see what we can do about it. You're looking at making this community better, that would be one ideal way to do it.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I got one question.
Nope. Okay, Mr. Howell?
Would you ask our attorney, I want to know if Oak Grove is being asked to subsidize the Wood Ranch and the Man Ranch by paving that portion of the boulevard that runs through Oak Grove, doesn't belong to us, runs through Oak Grove, directly to the Man Ranch, directly to the Wood Ranch, directly to another private resident. I want to know if there's a way for Oak Grove to assess the Wood Ranch, Man Ranch, Ms. Chartrand, their portion of the cost of repaving that part of the boulevard.
Well, since I'm in the capacity here of representing the Master Association, it sounds like you want to do something as an individual HOA to do something about that. I think that will be a question for the attorney that you've retained for your association.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Klittenauer. Come on.
Thank you. This is under new business. I had a resident in my community who asked me to present to the board, just for consideration, not for any vote tonight, the possibility of having a once-a-year yard sale within Cypresswood. They have overseen it in some other larger communities and had volunteered to do it here if the board would take it under consideration. So, I guess at the next meeting, I'll come back with more information, but I'd like to get at least some feedback as to whether anyone thinks that's feasible or not.
Now, or?
Yeah, now, yeah, how you folks feel about that?
It's come up in the amenities committee more than once. We end up with more problems than we do having it. It would obviously clearly be done in an open setting, probably here or over around the tennis courts. The problem is, where do they park? And to go to this said yard sale. It was also decided that it would be, and people said, we'll do it on a Saturday or Sunday. Well, then we take up all the parking, and that prohibits golfers from coming. I mean, there are a variety of problems that has come up.
Yeah, I think when we've discussed this in the past on a community-wide basis, the consensus at the time that the traffic in Fairway Patio, for instance, if you had a bunch of cars lined up, but people were doing it at their doorstep, would be prohibited. But I think this is more of a question, let them go back to their, because they're having their annual meetings, and see if people want to put, I don't think we would, we wouldn't have enough room to do it here anyway. I mean, so I think that would be.
Well, I've seen it done in one other large community, and what they did is it took place throughout the entire community, not in a specific area, and folks were able to drive down. Streets that didn't have any participants, they were blocked off. Those that were participating actually had a helium balloon tied to their mailbox. So you could see, oh, on this street, this house and this house are participating, the rest of them are not. When they came into the community, they were given an information sheet telling them where they could park and where they could not park and what they could do. And they did that. I saw that done in that community. It was about 800, a little over 800 residents in there. And it was done, I saw it done about 3 years in a row. Didn't get a lot of bad feedback from it, so I was asked to at least consider it. Maybe you can ask your associations now that we're having our annual meetings, and see what kind of feedback you get. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Anything else?
I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Crane.
The addressing of the golf cart, I agree something needs to be done. But what can we do?
We can do whatever you as a board decide to do about it.
Well, I don't know if
Put it in the regulations that nobody operates a golf cart unless they have a legitimate learner's permit or a driver's license.
And, okay, so Mr. Brutcher, the question becomes, and it's been before this board 1,000 times, is if you have an action, you have to have a consequence. That's the problem. And we don't have any, you have to have a finding committee, they have to be adjudicated, and they have to be fined, or whatever there has to be a consequence for their action, or they're just going to keep doing it. And the problem is the master, so this board has no individual members. So we don't have the authority to fine individual members of any HOA. The individual HOAs would have to do that.
No problem.
Okay, then you can set up, in your HOA, set up a finding committee, set up rules, and so when they speak, you could, theoretically, you can put any rule you want to. Because there's one.
Can't anything be theoretical here? This has to be an actuality, not theory.
You talking?
I got it. The golf carts aren't the only thing. There's people riding mini bikes in this place every day. And I've seen them come through the edge of my yard many a time. It's not just the golf carts. So I think the HOAs need to look at these people that are living in here. What are they doing or allowing their kids to do in this place?
If I can provide a little bit of input on this issue.
I'm telling you, they keep coming through my yard, and I'm going to stop it myself if the HOA won't stop it. I spend money to fix my yard to make sure I have a nice looking yard, and then I'm gonna have kids, and sometimes it's not even kids, it's grown adults riding on it. Now, I mean, I live right at the corner of St. Andrews and Canberra, and that golf cart crossing right there, I can't tell you how many times I've almost hit golfers going across there because they're too busy on their cell phone or whatever, crossing that road there, and they don't even look. I mean,
the city.
streets.
That's true.
And these
That's
are.
Florida law.
You
State of
are.
Florida says it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Let's talk about practical reality for a second. For most of what we're talking about here, this is a individual HOA issue, and it's a coefficient of how much your individual HOA really wants to patrol this and how much they want to spend on it. It is possible for individual HOAs that have finding committees to do something about it that way, but otherwise what you have to do is the injunctive relief remedy, which there are certain HOAs that actually do that. But it's a coefficient of how much you want to spend on it. I mean, it's a cost factor, okay? This is why in my officers and directors training class, I try to convince people, please don't run too close to the vest, because every now and then you're going to need some money to take care of somebody or make an example out of someone. And that's where you need a war chest and a coffer. And if you don't have that, what are you going to do? The other difficulty is, a lot of the suggestions made today are based on the altruistic principle that people naturally want to follow laws. And it's right, you're supposed to stop at stop signs. You're also not supposed to commit second-degree murder. And we have about 800 of those prosecutions in Polk County alone every year. The difficulty is that if you've got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old on a golf cart tooling around someplace, it doesn't take a very big person to know that you're not supposed to be doing that, number one. Number two, the grown-ups know the kids aren't supposed to be doing that. So you have basically a culture of lawlessness going on, okay? So you can publish rules all day long. The culture of lawlessness isn't going to follow it. What you have to do is convince these people in the culture of lawlessness that it's important to join your community. Okay, that's the thing. Now sometimes you have to do this through various means. Sometimes you can do it through informal pressure. Sometimes you have to actually take them to court. But it's part of making a believer out of them, so it convinces them to bring themselves into community with the rest of you. Okay, that's really the issue. They're not living in community with you. You're living in a nice little community. They're living on Libertine Acres. That's the difference. And it's the concept of bringing folks into community. That's why I stress a whole lot to communities that I represent that, you know, you can follow the rules, and have a war chest available to make sure that if people are going to follow the rules, you're going to enforce against them, and have an effective enforcement mechanism to do so. Also, the other big thing is collect your dues. Okay, the lowest level of community participation available is to cut a check. Think about it. What's the easiest way to come in a community? Pay a check for your dues. That is the lowest level of community participation available. And yet, how many people in your communities don't do that? Think about it. It's bringing people into community. And once you do that, a lot of these things start to disappear. But it's a process. And it requires sometimes professional assistance. Sometimes, well, you know, it's nice that folks want to volunteer and do things, but volunteers can only go so far. Okay, folks? Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Rick?
Okay, you mentioned finding committee. Majority of these kids are going into other HOAs. Can a finding committee find somebody who does not belong in their HOA?
Yeah, see, that gets into other issues.
That's probably a no, is what we've been told in other interpretations in certain situations, if I'm remembering correctly.
Majority of the people that are violating don't live where they're doing the
Yeah,
violation.
they're going in somebody else's community and getting a
Make a
rebel.
charge against them?
Can you do a what?
Make a charge against them.
You mean like a citizen's arrest?
Well, what do you find for citizens arrest?
That would be, I have no idea. Do you?
Don't recommend.
Dave?
Yeah, couldn't we have the committee make a requirement that all the golf carts or all the carts have to have a number on it?
It's,
I mean, how much can that, oh, wait a minute, I'm not done yet.
Okay, that's fine.
And do that because if they're driving these golf carts and they're underage, the parents hold some responsibility for that.
All of the responsibility. Oh, yeah.
And if you had numbers on there and someone's racing up and down the first thing, you're not gonna be able to get up there and grab these kids and wrestle them to the ground. And what you can do is you can note the time, maybe take a picture, everybody carries a cell phone, and call the police, and if it's against the state law that you have to be 14, and there's no one in that house that it is 14, I would think they'd get a ticket.
Well, let's talk about registration systems just for a second, okay? And I've heard registration systems for various things over the last 20, 30 years, ranging from vehicles, golf carts, pets. They work as well as the time, effort, and money you're willing to invest in keeping that system current and active. And that's always the issue. A lot of this boils down to how much money do you want to pay for this, because volunteers cannot keep up a database like this. Okay, there's no way on heaven or earth. So you have to have, number one, you have to have a database. Number two, you have to have somebody monitoring that database. Number three, you have to have somebody patrolling that database, which means they actually have to go out and drive the community and look for unregistered golf carts, unregistered vehicles, pets that do not, when you do use your degaussing coil, don't register a chip. You have to go out there and do that, because you're not only patrolling for alpha errors, you're also patrolling for beta errors. People who are unregistered vehicles, unregistered golf carts, unregistered cats, okay? And that required, and that is, by the way, that is way beyond the scope of volunteers. You have to have professionals do it. Condos do it a lot, but they have these professional community association managers, usually teams of them. One of them's usually sitting out in an office at the condo from 8 to 5 days a week, and boy howdy do they pay for it. It's just a matter of cost, how much you're willing to pay for it.
Yes, sir.
Going along with what you said, don't that fall under traffic? Because everybody that lives in here has a sticker on their car.
That's not true.
Well, no, you're supposed to.
Well, you're asked to.
Yeah.
There's no legal
I
requirement to
mean,
do
I've
so.
heard 1,000 reasons why you can't do something. Why is it so hard? Because this gentleman right here is right, this lady's right, he's right.
And
I don't know how many times I've seen these kids, and where he's talking about the kids getting thrown out and almost drugged, was at the corner of St. Andrews and Troon, because I've seen it. And I see it over and over and over. So somebody's going to get hurt, so why is it such a problem to at least have a registration number on a golf cart, to where you can report number 16 is being driven by kids that's 12 years old?
One thing is you have golf cart owners in this community who think that's a defacing of their golf cart to have a number on it.
Then they better sell it.
Sure.
I mean, like I say, I've heard 1,000 reasons why you can't, but I'd like to hear one reason why you could. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to keep these kids, because like you said, somebody's gonna get hurt.
Somebody's gonna get killed.
Yeah.
We had to get tough on it. We had to get tough on it because there were quads and dirt bikes going onto the golf course and ripping up $2 million worth of golf course. And when I started talking to people about it, people really started getting really pissed off. What we ended up having to do about it, because we couldn't get a finding committee together, is we had to take pictures. If you're really that pissed off about it, then you should get your pictures. And what we did is we found out where the individual was living, what was going on. And then we had to get pictures of them actually doing the act, actually being underage and actually driving these quads or anything on the golf course after hours. And then we sent them a letter. And then we sent them another letter. And then we sent them a lawyer. And that got their attention. Because once we send them to the lawyer, well, that's $550, and then we're gonna come after your house. That's what we did about it, because I got sick and tired of seeing the golf course get tore up, because it took $2 million to get us where we're at. You know what I mean? $2 million, you're gonna run a quad all over it. I don't even play golf, but I got $2 million worth of golf course, and you're gonna ride a dirt bike on it? You gotta get tough about it. I didn't wanna take pictures, I didn't wanna find out where these people were living, but I couldn't see the investment go away. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, John. One last one.
Would one of the presidents put a motion out there that all golf carts within the community be required to have a readable registration number? I don't think that's unrealistic to ask.
Can we do that? How much you guys want to pay for it?
So whose responsibility would it fall under? Would it fall under traffic controls?
I think so.
The same as the vehicle registration?
Yeah.
That's where, so the one gatesman is gonna, or the committee, yeah, good luck keeping them. We have to think about this. I think it would, if that's something you want and this gets support from the board, then it should be assigned to the traffic control committee to come up with ideas on possible solutions that would be legally viable. That would be my suggestion, if that's something that the board wants traffic control and their volunteer committee to do. That would be my suggestion. I don't think it's...
Jeff has written numerous articles about that same subject.
Well, none of us want any, we all agree with what you're saying. The problem is what can we legally do about it? And the police have sat in this room and said, call us. Now, we forget that's a disappointing thing, and I will call the supervisor.
Doesn't do a bit of good.
Well,
Doesn't do a thing.
Why don't we take it one step at a time?
Okay.
And ask traffic control to come up with some ideas. Once they do, then you can implement them however they figure out that they need to be done.
or if they can be.
Yeah, or if they can.
Right.
But you gotta start someplace, right?
I have a lot of ideas for implementation of this. If traffic control would like, I would gladly be part of their committee to assist with this aspect of it.
I thought they were.
But I know who it's up to.
Is there a committee that owns the rules and regulations?
I don't think there's a rules and regulation committee. I think the board, I think
Rules and regulations.
there are rules and regulations listed on the Cypresswood Community Association website that have been adopted by that board with absolutely no enforcement to it other than him writing a letter to him telling him don't do it.
It's a bad dog with no teeth.
Exactly. So that's that. The problem is enforcement. Make all the rules you want to. You have to have enforcement and figure out how to enforce it. And again, like you said, how much money are you willing to allocate to retain him to chase it? Or hire the sheriff's office. Yeah, that's another way. You can have more patrols and have them target the kids in the golf carts.
A general question, and I don't know, I don't think that they do, but the villages, there are 10,000 golf carts running on the road. Cart pass, and I don't think they require registration.
Okay.
You don't know that.
Yeah.
I can find out.
There's a lot of other ideas.
Yeah, there may be.
And we're all adults. We don't use this as a reason not to do it. We don't know where
So do we have? Does anybody in the board want to direct traffic control to pursue such a matter?
I still move.
Well, we have a motion to direct them to look at scenarios for addressing the situation. Is that your motion?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Yes, sir.
I move for adjournment.
I concur.
Second.
Second. We are adjourned.